Startup founders build companies aiming for a lucrative exit that rewards the value that they've created. When startups want to attract and retain talent but cannot afford to do so, since they're almost always usually strapped for cash, they grant their employees equity shares in the company at discounted rates that can be vested and exercised at a much later date, say when the company grows big enough to go for an IPO, at a value that is much higher than the price at which they received such shares. This is done in the form of ESOPs, SBEBs, SARs, and sweat equity, which then becomes a big incentive for why anyone works for a startup. It has been a long standing subject of regulatory debate as to whether a founder should be identified as a promoter or an employee under SEBI ICDR regulations. Founders have always been classified as promoters at the time of listing of a company, meaning they cannot benefit from the major monetary benefits received from stock option plans like any other employees, since such plans can only be exercised by employees and not promoters at the time of listing. This meant that the biggest contributor responsible for creating highest value for the company was robbed of his share of the pie. Aware of how unfair this was, Regulation 9A of SEBI's new norms has attempted to fix this gap by allowing founders, also being promoters, to exercise such stock options instead of forfeiting them at the time of listing if such stock options were granted at least 1 year before IPO filing. This removes a big disincentive for all startups by keeping founders invested through their capital, time, and commitment, ensuring that they are rewarded appropriately for their contribution to the company. However, even after this amendment, the definition of an employee remains the same under Companies Act and SBB regulations, meaning that even though now founders will be able to exercise their ESOPs at the time of listing of the company, they will still not be able to receive new ESOPs once the company has been listed and they have been specified as promoters.